Is your boss kind of a dummy, or are they toxic AF? There's all sorts of ways that your manager might be a bad manager, but really it all comes down into them falling into one of the 5 types of bad bosses. And if you're gonna deal with them effectively, you need to know who you're dealing with. So let's talk about the 5 types of bad managers. Hello, my friend, and if you're new here, welcome. My name is Jennifer, and I am your career bestie. If you would like more of the best career success advice on the WWW, we talk about toxic workplaces, navigating obstacles, getting promoted, all of that fun stuff, consider tapping the subscription button and the notification bell. Also, I post on Instagram and LinkedIn pretty much once a day. So if you want more career advice coming your way, go and follow me over there. Enough about that though. Who's our first bad boss? The first bad boss type we need to talk about is the clueless boss. And honestly, this one probably accounts for the vast majority of bad managers, because most bad bosses are not evil villains who are spending their free time plotting how to make your life miserable at work. You know my favorite quote, don't assume malice when stupidity will suffice? Apply it here. The reality is that most managers do not have sufficient training. They're unenabled, which if that's not a word, it is now. And they're typically thrown into positions without the right skill set to succeed. In fact, I would even go so far as to say that most of those managers want to be good managers. They just have no idea how to be a good manager. They haven't gotten the training, knowledge, and implementation support they need to succeed. Or maybe they had some of those things, or even all of those things, but it's not going so well. Typically, the things that get you promoted into management have absolutely nothing to do with leadership. So while they got to the position because they were really good at their job, at least hopefully, they don't have the talent or maybe even the interest in people leadership. It takes time to get there. Don't believe me? Well, I'm kind of proof. When I was first promoted into leadership, I didn't get any training. And it's not because my company didn't have great new manager training. It did. I just happened to get promoted at a time where there was like this whole travel embargo thing. So anyone who wasn't sitting in HQ didn't get the training, and I was not in HQ. And honestly, managing people was something that I had to do to have the role. It wasn't something that I necessarily wanted to do when I took the role. Because of those things, I was probably a nightmare manager for a while there. Luckily, I had a phenomenal manager who mentored and guided me, but your boss might not have that fantastic boss helping them out. So does it make your boss less bad if they're an unenabled boss or an incompetent boss? Maybe not, but maybe having a little bit of empathy is going to make your life easier. And it's also a great signal for you that the best way to cope with this manager is to manage up. They just don't know what they don't know, and you can really help them out. This is such a big thing that I have a whole video that focuses just on managing up. I'll link it in the description so you can watch it after this one. And we will now move into our second type of bad boss, which is the boss that gets in your way. This bad boss comes in a few different flavors. First, there's the bad boss who gets in your way because they're a micromanager. I also have a whole video on micromanaging bosses. I'll also link that. In fact, any of the bad bosses that I have dedicated videos for, I'll create a whole playlist for you guys. But let's talk about the micromanaging boss for a hot minute right here. They're frustrating because not only do they get in your way, slow you down, and annoy you, they do not give you space to grow as a professional. And let's face it, my friend, you're probably here because you are a professional who cares about growing. What underlies micromanagement so often is that you're actually dealing with an insecure boss. They're not confident as a leader, about their skills, how well they can support you, or even their own job stability. And they take it out on you by micromanaging you and getting in your way, especially when you're really talented and doing really great work, because if they are inserting themselves, they can take credit for it, right? Which, by the way, happens to be the topic of my next video, so if you want to see that, make sure you're subscribed. Of course, micromanaging and then taking credit for your work isn't the only way that your bad boss gets in your way at work. Some bad bosses bosses change their mind often. They move the goalpost right as you're about to hit it. They're indecisive and they even contradict themselves. This might be because of their own lack of clarity, their lack of ability to set and manage expectations, or perhaps because they're subject to the will of their own bad boss. This type of bad boss is also one who is likely to get in the way of your career advancement. They won't assign you to any interesting work that would actually propel your career forward, or if you're working on something that's kind of juicy, they reassign it to someone else, especially when you start getting visibility by senior leadership. Or maybe they're a passive-aggressive boss and their sabotage is more subtle, and harder to detect. They're undermining you during meetings and presentations, taking backhanded digs, or maybe they're just straight up aggressive and throwing you under buses to save themselves. This type of bad boss can also be the bad boss who sets you up to fail. They give you impossible tasks, impossible to achieve metrics, and expect outcomes that would require a moderately sized miracle to actually be achievable. And of course, when they do that, they make it a 100% you problem and give you no support or guidance from their side. You know you're being set up to fail. They know they're setting you up to fail. It's just a matter of the inevitable unfolding. No matter the flavor, the bad boss who gets in your way isn't just frustrating. They might be stalling your career. And if you have this type of bad boss, you're going to wish you had the next type of bad boss, who I like to call the ghost boss. When you need their help or input, they're nowhere to be found. Where did they go? The most prolific ghost boss is the lazy boss. They're here for the paycheck, not to get the job done. They are excessive delegators, which is great because you get to do a lot of different things on their behalf. You know, stretch assignments and all that. But at some point, you realize they've given away all of their work. And while our last type of bad boss was setting you up to fail, the ghost boss doesn't know what they're setting you up for because they don't really exist, at least from a functional perspective. Even when the ghost boss is there and they're going through the motions and maybe they aren't passing off all of their work, they're not really doing anything to help you. They offer little to no mentorship or guidance to you. And if you so much as email them a question, you know that is going into a black hole, never to be seen or heard from again. They're just not interested in supporting you, or maybe they just don't know how to support you. No matter their motivation, you have minimal contact and minimal guidance with the ghost boss, which may be a dream job, but it can leave you not really knowing how to move your career forward, or if you're doing a good job, or a bad job, or a mediocre job. And in this case, or really if you're dealing with any of these types of bad bosses, it's important for you to know what you are awesome at. And that's why I made my UAQ starter kit free for you to download, so you can uncover your unique awesomeness and elevate your career. Now let's talk about the fourth type of bad boss. This is the type of boss that can make going to work a real nightmare. That is the asshole boss. I know that label is really vulgar, so I'll just casually refer to this type of boss as the cylindrical donkey. Do I even need to qualify what this bad boss is like? This can be the boss who plays favorites. You know, Chad loves the other Chad on the team because he reminds him of himself. And mini Chad's success reminds him and validates of his own success. So he gives him preferential treatment and praises him for his mediocrity. Or that credit snatching boss that we talked about earlier. You do the work, they take the credit, and pretend you weren't involved at all. There's the inconsiderate boss who, quite frankly, is just a jerk. This bad manager is just straight up rude. You don't have to be friends with your boss, and you don't even have to like your boss. But you should have a positive and productive working relationship with your boss and really with all your coworkers. The thing is, when it comes to the cylindrical donkey boss, they just can't have that with anyone unless there's something in it for them or Chads. And really, that is the epitome of this type of bad boss. It's all about them. They don't care if you're winning. They don't care if the team is winning. They don't care if the company is winning. All they care about is the fact that they are winning. That said, this type of bad boss isn't really intent on making your life miserable. They just lack an interest in your experience altogether. So they're not malicious per se, they just don't care, for whatever that's worth. And that actually brings us to our last type of bad boss, and that is the toxic boss. This is the type of bad boss who truly derives delight from your misery. And if you've watched any of my videos before, you know what I'm gonna say about coping with a toxic boss. The only effective way to cope with them is to get away from them. Let me know in the comments if you called that one. Sure, you can avoid and minimize your contact, but there is no path to shining when you're taking on the heavy lifting of persuasion and all of the things that you need to do to really deal with that individual. If you can transfer to another team or manager, do it. If you need to plot your escape, do that. Because here's the thing about the toxic boss versus all of the other bad boss types. If your bad boss is just a toxic person, there is no fixing them. You can't manage up with a toxic manager, at least not sustainably. And with this type of bad boss, there might even be some underlying personality disorder. For example, you might be dealing with a narcissistic boss, or they can be one of the 20% of corporate leaders who could be diagnosed with psychopathy. Now, there are 9 signs that your boss is toxic, and if you think you have a toxic boss, you need to know what they are. You need to know who you're dealing with. So I want you to go and watch this video right now so you know the signs that your boss is toxic. But before you go, if this video helped you, give it a thumbs up. It really helps my channel and it makes you my favorite career bestie. As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.